Let's dive into Kazuo Ishiguro's masterpiece, An Artist of the Floating World. We're going to meet a man who seems totally at peace with his past. But what if that piece is just a performance, a carefully constructed story? We're about to uncover the secrets of a man haunted by his own history.
So our guide on this journey is Masuji Ono, and at first glance, he's exactly what he seems to be. A respected, elderly painter, just kind of living out his retirement, looking back on a life filled with accomplishment and acclaim. He tells his story with this calm, dignified voice that just makes you want to trust him.
But the more you listen, the more you start to notice little things, right? Small inconsistencies. He'll change the subject just a little too fast. The pieces of his past, they don't quite fit together. And that's the central mystery of the whole novel. Underneath that calm, reflective surface, what is Masuji Ono so desperately trying to hide?
Okay, so to really understand the deception, first we have to understand the performance. This is the world that Ono wants us to see.
This is the voice he uses. It's the voice of a man who's made his peace with the world. A guy who's done his part and is now happy just to sit back and watch things change. It's measured, it's humble, and honestly, it's really convincing. You kind of want to believe him.
And this is the million-dollar question Ishiguro forces us to ask. Is this genuine contentment we're hearing, or is it a mask? A story Ono tells himself, and tells us, to keep a much more painful reality hidden away. Answering that question is the key to unlocking this whole amazing novel.
So how does he pull this off? How does the deception actually work? Well, it all comes down to one of the most brilliant tricks in literature, the unreliable narrator. Now here's the thing about Ono. He's not a malicious liar. He's more like a master curator of his own life story. His unreliability doesn't come from a desire to trick you. It comes from this deep, very human need to protect himself. A need to believe that he is a good man, no matter what the evidence says.
And Ishiguro gives us all the clues we need. You just have to know where to look. For example, you'll notice how Ono will start telling a difficult story and then suddenly, boom, he's talking about the garden. That's a motivated digression. He's constantly using phrases like, as I recall, or I may be mistaken, to give himself an out. And then you have his own daughter, who gently corrects his memories, showing us his version isn't the whole truth. But the most powerful tool of all, it's what he doesn't say. The silences, they speak volumes.
All right, so what is he hiding? What's the big secret? Let's peel back the first layer, and it's the story of his art, how his passion was twisted into something else entirely.
You can basically trace his entire moral journey, from an artist celebrating beauty to becoming a tool of the state, just by looking at two specific paintings that defined his career.
He started out painting the floating world, pictures of pleasure, beauty, just art for art's sake. He even looks back on this work and calls it complacency. But he gets restless. He wants his art to have a purpose, so he starts creating these powerful nationalistic works like Eyes on the Horizon. The problem is that purpose ended up serving a militant imperialist state. His great artistic awakening was also his great moral downfall.
Now, this commitment to nationalist art wasn't just theoretical. It had devastating, real-world consequences. And this brings us right to the secret at the very heart of Ono's guilt.
At the center of this whole thing is a young man named Kuroda. And he wasn't just any student. This kid was one of Ono's most promising, most talented protégés.
But Kuroda's art, well, it didn't exactly follow the party line. It didn't fit with the state's rigid ideology. And in a time of intense nationalism, his work was labeled subversive, even unpatriotic. A very dangerous label to have back then.
And here it is, the one act that Ono can never, ever bring himself to confess directly. In the name of his ideology, Ono, his teacher, his mentor, reported his own student to the authorities.
The consequences were swift and absolute. A brilliant young artist's career was destroyed. His work was burned, his freedom was taken away, all of it because of what his mentor did. This is the truth that haunts every single page of Ono's story.
But Ono's personal story, it isn't just about one man's guilt. No, it's a powerful metaphor for what an entire country was grappling with after the war.
Think about it. After Japan's defeat, the very values Ono dedicated his entire life to, nationalism, sacrifice, imperial destiny, they're suddenly sources of deep shame. He is a walking relic of a disgraced world, trying to find his place in a new Japan that sees him as irrelevant at best and a collaborator at worst.
And you can see this play out in his daily life. Younger men like Murayama are just indifferent to him. His own daughters, Setsuko and Noriko, they treat his past like it's this awkward, embarrassing problem that needs to be managed. The world has moved on, and all the respect and influence he once had, it's just gone. The foundation of his whole identity has crumbled.
And this, right here, is why the novel is so profound. Ono's personal, psychological battle, what to remember, what to forget, how to justify the choices he made, is a perfect miniature of Japan's own national struggle in those post-war years. How does a whole society move forward without either lying about its past or being completely paralyzed by it?
But in the end, Ishiguro turns the question back on us. Ono's curated memories, his quiet little self-deceptions, they feel uncomfortably familiar, don't they? The novel stops being just about a painter in post-war Japan, and it starts being about the myths we all build around ourselves, the gaps in our own stories, and that fragile line between memory and performance. So I'll just leave you with this. How reliable a narrator are you?